Dan, would you tell these guys that the Washington Commanders deserve a little bit more respect? Jayden Daniels off an elite rookie year. You know what he is. He's electric. He gets outside the pocket. Scary Terry McLaurin. The defensive line, a little bit better than people are giving credit, maybe not against the run. It's not going to be a cakewalk. They got to the second round of the playoffs for a reason, correct?
Cakewalk.
I mean, they've won 13. They've won 13 games, guys. I mean, they won 12 of the regular season, and they just beat Tampa Bay. I mean, if you don't respect everybody at this time of year, I think you're doing it wrong. This quarterback is obviously something special. This team is playing with house money. They're going to be loose coming in here. Nobody expected them to be here. I don't think they bear the weight of being a number one seed or having overwhelming Super Bowl expectations. That doesn't mean that they don't feel it, because now that you're in it, you believe you have a chance. But look, you talk about a team with Bobby Wagner. You talk about a team with that defensive line, those 2 D tackles in there that can make some plays. This is a team you better respect. You can't, cliche, roll the ball out there and think you're going to win. Now, personally, I think the way the Lions lose this game is by making mistakes. I don't think if the Lions play their type of football to their capabilities, offense, defense, special teams, that they're going to lose this game. But it doesn't take much. You're talking about a play or two in a game like this that can make a difference.
Also, I think the Lions have to be leery of Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is the quarterback coach that's been to the Super Bowl. And keep in mind, he was defensive coordinator the last couple of years of Dallas, where they played the Lions twice. So there is some familiarity with Dan Quinn and the Detroit Lions a little bit.
And he's going to roll the dice. That's the other thing. I mean, you're going up against a team that, again, much like the Lions, is not going to mind going for 4th down. And they're going to have that 4-down mentality, I think, a lot of times in the game, which kind of keeps you off balance on 3rd down, because if a team knows they're going forward on 4th, then that can influence what you do on 3rd. Maybe it's something a little bit out of the box. So, look, you got a heartbreaker at quarterback who you can think on a 3rd and 7, you got him hemmed in, a 4th and 5, you got him hemmed in, and he's going to make a play. So you just need to grind through this game, find a way to get it done. But this is kind of an interesting opponent, guys. This quarterback makes them a little bit different in my mind.
Hey, Dan, it's interesting that you mentioned the going for it on 4th down mentality and everything like that. That is an area that Braylon and I focused on for the Lions Game Day Live pregame show. 20 of 23 this season when going for it on 4th down. That's a damn near 90% they convert. Yep. So when they do go for it, they make it. They stay on the field. It is going to be very important for the Lions to get off the field.
And look, they have the best 3rd down defense in the NFL. I mean, there's something to be said for what the Lions did during the regular season. But the key there, and I talked to the coach about this for our pregame show, is winning 1st and 2nd down. You need to find a way to get them in that 3rd and long situation so that it's advantageous to the defense. But I think the equalizer on that 4th down is, you look at the stats, it's been Daniels throwing and Daniels running. And look, that doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. He's the guy with the ball in his hands. But he's cool back there, and he finds a way to make a play, and he knows where the sticks are. So, look, it's a different kind of challenge than the Lions have seen. They saw Kyler Murray earlier this year, did a good job on him. Richardson, they kind of shut him down after the first drive. Josh Allen, not so much. So, I mean, kind of a mixed bag against mobile quarterbacks. And as Coach Campbell said this week, who really does play well against, mobile quarterbacks? So they just got to find a way. Look, to me, guys, everybody's talking about the defense, and I think that's certainly part of it. But to me, it's about the Lions' offense. If the Lions' offense comes out and plays the way they're capable of playing, where they have that streak of 4 straight possessions where they get a touchdown, 4 out of 5, something like that, defense gets a stop or 2, all of a sudden Washington looks up and they're down 2 scores. I'm looking at the offense to set the tone in this game and make Washington chase them, which they've done in games this year. They did it to Seattle. They did it to Dallas. And I think that's the key in my mind. You don't want to have a lot of empty possessions in this game, because that's where I feel like it can get away from you. You don't want to give them short fields. You don't want to let their defense score points. Gets back to what I said. I think the Lions win this game. I think the way they lose this game is you make mistakes that give the other team life.
Hey, Dan, it's Maz. Great having you on, as always. We appreciate it.
Why do you always say it like he doesn't know it's you?
Pardon?
He's like, hey, Dan, it's Maz. We know it's you, sexy.
Anyway, yeah. Let me get back to what I was saying. Dave. Look, the team won 15 games, 15-2. They should have beat Tampa Bay. We all know that. It was the worst game for Goff, worst coach game for Dan Campbell. They could have beat Buffalo. I'm looking at a team that don't make mistakes. Yeah, they made mistakes in the Texans game. They threw 5 interceptions. They still won the game. They made a couple of mistakes against Minnesota. They still won that game. This team has got a 2-week rest. I don't fear Washington. I handpicked this team at the beginning of the playoffs to play them. So I don't care what they bring in. We're going to beat them, and they're going to beat them by 3-4 scores.
Wow. Okay. Listen, I love your enthusiasm and confidence. I just think, look, this is the time of year where mistakes are magnified. I'll say the same thing if they get to next week and play the Eagles or the Rams. You can't make mistakes. And I'll say the same thing that offense has to play like the highest scoring offense in the NFL, which it was. But Maz, it's not the 15 games they won during the regular season. There's no doubt that matters. And there's no doubt that that's the recipe for them to win. The stakes are bigger, but the recipe doesn't change. You know how to win football games. You got to go out and do it. I'm just saying be wary of making mistakes on a stage like this, because that's what gets another team going and makes them think this is their day. So, like I said, I told you I think the Lions win this game. I told you how I think they don't win this game is a couple too many mistakes that gives the other team life. But the 15, to me, that stands out in this regard. They know how to win. They understand what it takes, and they can win different kinds of games. They just need to do that again this week, make it 16.
No doubt, Dan. And Dan Campbell will never, ever let this team look in the mirror and think they're better than Washington. They're going to come out. I only worry about they might be a little off at the beginning because they had 2 weeks off. But if they come out and put a first touchdown on, it's Katie bar the door to me.
Well, listen, I think if there's one thing that we've learned about Dan Campbell, and I think if there's one thing that I would say really is one of his super strengths, is getting a team ready to play. And we go back to that stat about not having lost 2 games in a row since October of 2022. Nobody else in the league is even close to that. So that tells me week after week, up, down, he figures out a way to get his guys going. And, they've won a ton of games since that 1-6 start in 2022.
Amazing.
And he knows how to do it, and they've continued to do it. So, but guys, everything is fragile. Yep. Everything is fragile this time of year. You take nothing for granted. You got to go out there and deliver. You got 60 minutes of football coming up on Saturday night, and you just need to figure out a way to get it done, just like you have done throughout the season. That doesn't change.
Hey, Dan,
I sense a little Maz disrespect for Washington there, and I'm not going there. I respect the opponent and know what you got to do to go beat them.
Plus, they were your boyhood team as well.
They were. Listen, I grew up going to RFK Stadium with my dad. We had season tickets, and I've done a bunch of shows back there this week, and I will say that experience, being in that stadium, rooting for that team, and the Bullets and Washington football team were my two. They were my favorite. They were what gave me passion. They were probably what directed me to do what I'm doing with my life. But I'm all Honolulu blue on Saturday night. And,
I know that.
And trust me, even more so because of that, I don't want to lose this game.
Got to stick it to your friends, of course.
Hey, Dan, let me ask you.
Oh, my goodness. Trust me, I will hear about it if we lose this game.
Oh, man. Doc over there in Washington, he's going to be coming for the
I should have had Doc on.
Yeah, should have had Doc on, Maz.
There's a list.
Everyone in Washington told me no this week, by the way, Dan.
You should have called me. I'd have hooked you up.
I know you would have.
Hey, Dan, any indication how much David Montgomery will play this week? Will he, when he was playing, he'd get the first series and start the game. Do you anticipate he'll get that first series this week?
That's a great question. We actually had this conversation last night as to whether or not we thought he'd be out there for that first series, because exactly what you said, Ryan. He is the guy. My guess, and I don't know anything, my guess is he'll get the first series, just because I think they'll go back to that. I think that's a respect thing, and that's a complete guess. But in the end, I do think Gibbs probably gets more touches. But look, if I trust Ben Johnson to do anything, it's to take the temperature of the game and figure out which running back should be in there. And I think that's ultimately what he's got to do in this game. And it's a great thing to have both these options back. I've heard people say, "Oh, is it good because Gibbs has been?" Yes, it's good because it gives this terrific offensive coordinator and head coach opportunities to make choices as to how you want to attack this Washington team. And you know what? On 3rd and 1 or goal line situations, there's not many guys I'd rather hand the ball to than David Montgomery running behind that offensive line.
Hey, Dan, a friend of mine, a mentor of mine, also named Dan, by the way, told me to ask you a question. And I answered it. I said, my answer's not good enough. You have to go to Dan. He's like, well, I mean, I just want to get a little bit outside. Dan comes on. So anyway, yeah, here you go. Ben Johnson, this offense, a great offense. What do you expect their game plan to be this Sunday? Do you expect this Saturday? Do you expect them to try to hide plays or shield plays and try to run a basic game plan because they believe they're better than the Washington Commanders? Or do you expect the typical Detroit offense and they could care less?
I think it's the typical Detroit offense. Look, I don't think they've hit plays all year. I think they've run trick plays when they're up big in games. They roll things out when they feel like they can make it work. I just think, look, there's so many weapons on this team. I mean, I was doing one show in Washington today, and they said, who do you think, if you were Washington's defense, you'd look to shut down and take that offense out of its rhythm? And I said, well, you know what, like all coaches say, you try to stop the run, make them one-dimensional. But I guess maybe it's Amon-Ra, because whenever they really need something, they go to him. But if you take him away, you still got J-Mo, you still got Laporta, you still got those running backs, you still got Tim Patrick. I mean, look, this offense is so balanced that I think Ben Johnson does a great job and Jared Goff does a great job of taking whatever you're going to give him. And that, if that is checking down all day and being patient, he'll do that. But I think that's where Jared has been so good this year, and probably one of the reasons that his completion percentage is so high is he just takes whatever you give him. And one other thing that I talked to the coach about for our radio pregame show this week was, man, this is a game where you love having Jared Goff as your quarterback. And all due respect to you know, Jayden Daniels and what he's done, and this isn't even a conversation that concerns him, but you feel good about a veteran quarterback that has been there. And I go back to this, guys. Man, going into that Rams game last year, my stomach was flying. I was like, how in the world does Jared handle all this emotion? All he does is come out and complete his first 10 or 11 passes. Uh-huh. I mean, the dude's just a stud, and things don't bother him. And in a game like this is where you love having him, because even when Jared seems to make a mistake, man, he just comes back better. And even when he seems to have a down series, he just comes back ready to go. And you love that mindset and having that guy that's been in this position before.
Dan, this isn't for you. This is for the other Dan, if you will, my mentor. I told you. Does that sound familiar, Dan? Jeez Louise, here you go.
Yeah, I mean, Braylon, look, if your coach came in before a big game and told you we're going to change the thing we've done all year, you'd be like, why are we doing that?
Yeah, I'd be asking for my
they're
papers.
Gonna play, they're going to play the game that they have played all year, and it will be. We don't know what it'll be, because Ben Johnson, you never know what he's going to do. Are they going to just hammer it at him like they did in overtime against the Rams, or do they come out throwing the ball? I think it's going to be a mixture of all of it, but that's the way this team was built. This team was built with so many different weapons that you don't know which way they're going to go coming in, and if they execute, they're really, really tough to deal with. That's how you become the highest scoring offense in the NFL.
Only team that changes game plans in the middle of the season when they're winning is Ohio State. So, yeah, there you go.
Dan, last one for you.
But they only change it from Michigan, and it doesn't work.
That's right. Dan, last one. Adam Schefter on Pat McAfee earlier today. Here's a quote. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson are getting head coaching jobs. Aaron Glenn is in play in New York, New Orleans, and I think he's in play in Las Vegas if he wants to be. Any doubt in your mind that they will be offered head coaching jobs in your mind this season? Whether Ben Johnson takes it or not, we don't know. But that's from Schefter earlier this afternoon.
It doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel like they won't be offered. It certainly seems like both of them are absolutely ready. I mean, Aaron Glenn has done everything, checked every box. His leadership is there. His track record is there. He's been a scout. He's been an assistant coach. He's been a player. He's done everything. He's ready. Ben Johnson, look, he's ready. Maybe he didn't even know if he was ready for a couple of years. He's certainly ready now. And it feels like in this cycle with the openings that are out there, and the relationship that you can make between these candidates and those openings, that it feels like they're both going to get offered. Guys, it's hard for me to see at this point either one of them coming back, but I would say this, the way they do come back is if it just doesn't feel right, is if there's just something with the organization that ultimately it comes down to where they're like, I can't win here. It's not set up correctly. And I will tell you, a situation like Chicago, that scares me. That front office situation with Poles and with Kevin Warren, it just, there's something funky there, man. And it just, I want to make sure if I'm going in, I got a chance to be successful. Look at the cycle from Dan Campbell. It's him and Sirianni. That's it. I think there was like 5 other coaches. They're all gone now. So you got to set yourself up well if you're going to get that opportunity. And it certainly feels to me, Ryan, long way of answering your question, that they're both going to get that opportunity this year.
Hey, just to follow up, I don't know. I guess I didn't see this coming, and I probably should have. But Chris Spielman apparently interviewed for the GM job in New York. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, it caught me a little bit by surprise too. Not that I don't think Chris is capable, but he hasn't necessarily been in that role here. And I am sure as he sat down with them, look, Chris is about culture, but he's also been here for the draft. He's been here for the scouting process. I know he watches tape and communicates with Brad Holmes, so he understands certainly what he's looking at. He played the game. He's been a part of the front office here. So, look, I don't doubt that at some point Chris is going to get that opportunity. I don't know what appeals to him or what he wants to do, but I will say this, Chris is a big part of what has happened here. He's a big part of designing what a Detroit Lions organization looks like and what a Detroit Lion player looks like. And I'm sure that's appealing to other organizations out there that are trying to get their culture in line and trying to have that template of what a Lion looks like. I always go back to, in my mind, the teams that have done it for years, Ravens, Steelers. They know exactly what a Raven looks like and exactly what a Steeler looks like. I think now we know what a Lion looks like. And when you have that, other teams want to copy that. They want your guys. That's why Chris Spielman is getting a chance like that to interview.
Dan, who are the Lions playing next Sunday at 3?
Man, I think Philadelphia. I just think it's tough for the Rams to go in there. I haven't seen a weather report yet. I think it's turning cold on the East Coast
Big
starting
snow
Saturday night, which would be
I
think it's going to be nasty out there. I just think Philadelphia's offensive line is the way to do it. Short week, obviously, and traveling across the country. And two, I just think a credit, though, to that Rams defense, and TJ's the first one to kind of point this out. That defense is a lot better than it was last year because those young players that were there last year have taken a step, and then getting Verse and Fisk has given them another step. So that team is really good. But I just think that's a tough place to go win with that offense and asking Stafford to roll them through there. But, look, he's playing at a really high level right now. I wouldn't put anything past him, but you're asking me, I would say Philadelphia wins that game. Let me ask you guys.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, the game of the weekend, is it Ravens or Bills?
Bills.
Ravens.
I'm Bills.
Ravens. I think it's Lions-Bills in the Super Bowl. I think
it's Lions-Ravens.
Yeah.
Is there a chance for the Texans to upset the Chiefs?
Yes,
No.
yes. I do think there's.
No, I don't see
Here's where,
Okay.
and this scared me about the Lions a little bit.
There's no way. There's no way.
I love Mike Drive.
Right.
I want the Chiefs to lose. 38-0. They gave that game away.
Dale.
I want them to lose.
But here's what scared me about the kind of why I wanted the Detroit-Minnesota game at the end of the year. Kansas City hadn't played a game in a month. They have not played a game that has mattered in 25 days.
I guess they set the starters.
I think that's and they sat their starters in Week 18. I think that's a really, really tough thing to not play in NFL. That's like a bowl game for a college team that, remember Michigan played Ohio State back in the day and then they wouldn't play for a month. I think that's a really tough thing.
Guys, I don't think the Texans are that good. I just
They're
don't.
not.
I think they're okay. I think they've struggled at times this year. I don't think they've looked as good as they did last year. And look, if there's admitted that might give you some pause, Ryan. But those Super Bowl rings they have at their house, that tells me they know how to play this time of year. And look, Kansas City at times hasn't looked like the dominant team they have in the past. But you know what they do? They figure it out. They figure it out, and Mahomes figures out a way to win the game. And I don't see the Texans beating them in that one.
I just can only imagine, and I posted this, and you got mad at me because I know you're not a look-ahead guy. January 26th, NFC Championship game just so happens to be Dan Miller's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Dan.
One hell of a birthday present if the Lions can get there and win that game. What the hell?
I am available. I'm available.
I'll bring you a Costco cake. Man.
There we go.
Hey, I love Costco cake.
You won't.
I gotta come to the studio. I gotta come to the studio.
Oh man, Dan, have fun
Go
this
get 'em,
weekend,
Dan.
man. Enjoy
Go get
these
'em.
games,
All right,
man.
boys.
Enjoy.
You got it. You got it. Great Dan Miller. By the way, this game